Namaste and welcome to this 60-minute Yin Yoga practice. If you haven't practiced Yin before, or if you haven't practiced with me before, I'll give you a little bit of a description or overview of what this class is going to look like. So the way that I teach, as was taught to me, is through the Sarah Powers and Paul Grilly lineage, which focuses predominantly on the meridians. These meridians come from traditional Chinese medicine. And so within these shapes, we're looking to target specific areas. And I will let you know where the target might be in each shape. And if it doesn't feel right, or if it feels not exactly where it's meant to, you can always adjust and utilize your props in order to change the shape for what works for you. There are 3 principles to this practice, and the first one is to find your edge. So in Yin Yoga, we are looking to find that first area of resistance within the body. It's where you can feel that there is something preventing you from going further. And instead of trying to surpass that, we respect our edge and we stay there. And the second principle is to release our muscles, or to soften. So you want to disengage the muscles and just stay muscularly soft within the shape, and we hold for time, being the third principle. So the idea is a little different than you might be used to in a more yang style practice, where you are holding on or engaging the muscles. In Yin, we are looking to get into the deeper connective tissues. So things like the ligaments, the tendons, the joints, and even the bones. And in order to do that, we need to disengage the muscles so that we can get into those more yin tissues. And those yin tissues really like long held poses. They like coolness. They like less intensity than maybe our more yang tissues. And so in order to most benefit them, we provide our yin tissues with a yin practice. For today's class, you will want maybe a bolster if you have it, or even just a long pillow, a couple of blocks if you have them, or even some books, and a cushion. So something like this that's not quite as big as a pillow, maybe a little bit thinner. You can also use a folded up blanket if you don't have a cushion. Any amount of props that you can have nearby, so you don't need to go off, then that will be great. I will demonstrate each pose, and I will accompany you in the poses as I speak to some of the elements of traditional Chinese medicine, as well as the Taoist 5 elements. But know that you do not need to hang on to my every word, that you can tune in and tune out of what I'm saying. Nothing is so vital that you need to listen to everything. I'm just giving you some bits of information throughout the practice that can help to keep you in the present moment. If you prefer, you can play some music to accompany the practice and just have it close by, but so that you can still hear my cues and instructions. So to begin, we will start in a reclined butterfly shape, and you will want to have your long pillow or your bolster and place it lengthwise on the mat, and just have your blocks or your books nearby and have them on either side of you. And then you'll come to sit with that long bolster towards the low back. Bring the soles of the feet together, and here we're looking to stimulate the kidney meridian, which runs along the inside of the legs. So in order to do that, for most of us, the feet will need to come a little closer towards the groin. And then just have your blocks nearby as you come to lay down on the bolster. And as long as your head is supported, that's really what we're looking for. We want the shoulders to fall along either side of the bolster or the cushion if possible, but you definitely want the head to be supported. And then you can have the blocks underneath the knees if that already feels like quite a bit within the inside of the legs. Or you can take the blocks off to the side and just have them close by should you need to pop them under a little later on. So we are going to stay here for quite some time. You can start to find your shape now and just make sure that it's not too intense to begin with. You can have some blanket nearby if you're chilly and you want to keep some body heat in. You can place that over yourself as well. And you can have the palms resting down onto the earth facing up. Or what I quite like in this position is to place one palm on my belly and one palm on my heart. And once you found a position, you can begin to close down the eyes. And just take a moment here to tune into the natural rhythm of your breath. Notice the inhales and exhales as they flow in and out of your body without needing to pull on the inhale or push on the exhale. Just observe your own body's natural rhythm. Observe the length, the depth, and the quality of each individual inhale. And the same for each portion of the out breath. Notice any similarities or any differences and just observe. There is no need to control them in any way. And similar to observing the breath, you can begin to observe any sounds around you. You can notice what thoughts come in. Just watching each and every moment as it is. Not trying to control the stories that play through your mind. Just watching what it is that comes into your field of awareness, either via thoughts or sounds, smells, anything that starts to take your attention. Just observe it without preference to it being one way or another, without trying to change anything at all. And similar to observing the breath and watching each moment as it passes, you can use this mindfulness throughout your practice today. As you spend time in each shape, you might notice pains or pings of discomfort, things that are often inflicted from the mind as opposed to a physical sensation of pain. It can often be triggered by the mind being uncomfortable or feeling displeasant, and I invite you to explore these sensations in each shape. Know that if you do feel any true pain, like sharp shooting sensations, this is, of course, a time where you can either back out of the shape or maybe make it a little more comfortable. But I invite you to explore these sensations as they come up. Notice what is it really that is taking place within your present moment. Is it simply the mind feeling uncomfortable with stillness and trying to distract you? Or is it something that needs your attention? Just know that whatever it is that comes up throughout your practice today, whether it's any unpleasant physical sensations or perhaps thoughts that you wish were different or less frequent, whatever it is, know that everything is impermanent. Everything is constantly changing from one aspect of energy to the next. Throughout the practice today, we will be exploring the water element. And in the Taoist theory, the water element governs the kidney and urinary bladder meridians. So these meridians I'll speak to as we go through the shapes. But know that the negative emotion associated with the water element is that of fear. Fear is quite prevalent nowadays for a variety of reasons. Fear of the unknown, of the future, of possible sickness or loss of job, a whole slew of things that are causing fear amongst us as a species. And so by giving ourselves a practice for the water elements and helping move this energy through our kidney and urinary bladder meridians, we are giving ourselves the best chance of moving any stuck energy, any stagnant or deficient energy, so that we might be able to better deal with any feelings of fear, and we might allow that energy, that emotion, to move more freely through us. When you're ready, slowly begin to bring the awareness back into your body. Wiggle the fingers and wiggle the toes. Bring the hands to the outside of the legs and just gently close the legs up together. Bring the knees to touch. The feet come flat onto the ground. And then separate the feet so that they're mat distance apart and allow the knees to fall in toward one another. Feel the release of sensations through the inside of the legs. And observe how what felt quite intense or quite sensational at first, after just a few breaths, these sensations start to dissipate. Start to walk the feet back in toward one another. And bring your right arm up overhead. Slowly, gently come to roll off of your pillow and just stay here on the side in a fetal position. You're ready with as little effort as possible. Make your way up to a comfortable seat. When you feel ready, you can open the eyes. The next shape that we will come into is a half frog. We'll come into it on one side and then the other, and we'll stay on the belly and follow that up with a Sphinx and seal shape. So I will demonstrate all of those right now, just so you have an idea of where we're going, and then we can come into them again together. So for these, you will likely just need your one block perhaps, and your cushion if you feel like you will want that. I'll show you how you might set them up. So we'll come to lie on the belly, and for the half frog shape, you'll take one leg. We'll start with the right leg out to the side, and you'll come to find a 90-degree position with the leg. So the knee comes in line with the hip, and the foot can stay in line with the knee. If you already feel this through the inside of the groin, you can take the cushion and just put it underneath the knee, underneath the thigh. Similarly, if you have any sore bits underneath that knee, you can place the bolster or the cushion underneath the knee. And then for the head, you can place either the forehead down to the ground, or you can look toward one side. Just take note of which side you look toward. If it feels better to look toward the knee side, you can look that way, and then we'll switch for the other side. So we'll stay here for a few minutes, and then we'll move on to the other side. So simply to come out, we'll remove any cushion, straighten the leg, and then we'll move over to the other side. After we've done that on both sides, we'll set up for Sphinx with an option to come into seal. So I'll demonstrate both. For Sphinx, we'll set ourselves up with the arms again in 90-degree angles, or a little bit more open. So the elbows will come directly underneath the shoulders or a little further away. And you want them so that they're shoulder distance apart. So one way of finding that is just to take the opposite hand and place it toward the inside of the elbow. That gives you a pretty good indication that they're shoulder width apart. There's a tendency to bring them wide, and when they're wide, the joints aren't stacked, so there's a little bit more muscular activation. And in Sphinx pose, if you do have any low back pain, you can bring the legs a little further apart, or if there's any tension in the low back, you can widen the legs. Otherwise, you can just allow them to rest as they are. There's no need to worry about the heels being turned in or turned out. Just allow them to be natural. And then think of bringing the chest forward as you allow the ribs to lower down to the ground. And then with the shoulders, we're neither sinking down and allowing the shoulders to come up to the ears, nor are we pushing all the way up so that it's really active, but rather we want a more neutral position. And you can take a block. If holding your head up for a few minutes doesn't sound the most ideal, then you can take a block and just allow your forehead to rest on the block. If you prefer a lower level, you can try a lower level. If you are okay with allowing it to hang, you can also allow the head to hang. So we are looking to get into the urinary bladder meridian or the kidney meridian. The urinary bladder runs all the way along the back side of the body, and the kidney runs in through the low back. So somewhere along the back side of the body, you might also feel something through the front, some stretching or opening through the front. That's perfectly okay. Ideally, we do feel something along the spine as well. After some time in Sphinx, I will offer an option to come into seal. And for seal, we'll just take the hands and place them towards the outer corners of the mat. Push into the palms to lift the elbows up away from the mat. And again, same as Sphinx, think of reaching the chest forward as you allow the ribs to lower down towards the mat. So somewhere along the spine you should feel it, but you don't want to feel any pain. So slight discomfort, but no pain. And here you can keep the head up, or maybe you allow the chin to lower down toward the mat. This is your choice. We will only stay here for a minute. If you come into seal and it doesn't feel great, then just lower back down to Sphinx for the remainder of the time. We'll rest onto our belly before finding our next shapes. So I'll invite you to come along with me now. We'll set up first for half frog. So with the right leg, after you come to lie onto your belly, with the right leg, bring the knee so that it's in line with the hip, the ankle in line with the knee, and then either a cushion underneath that leg, if that feels best, and then come to rest one ear down onto the hands or onto a block, and allow the eyes to close. Remember that if at any point you feel any strong discomfort or any pain, so any sharp shooting sensations, pins and needles, then this would definitely be an appropriate time to make an adjustment. But otherwise, if you can take this opportunity to simply explore finding stillness. Allow for stillness in the body to help promote or find stillness with the breath, that effortless point where the breath is unlabored, so that we might be able to then find stillness in the mind. Slowly lift the head and straighten that right leg. Bring it along to match the left. And just notice any similarities, any differences from one side to the next. And then we'll switch over to the other side. So left leg comes out, 90-degree angle, knee in line with hip, ankle in line with knee. Notice if you need a cushion here or something under your knee, even if you didn't on the other side. Really respect the edge in each individual shape on each side and support yourself as you need. Remember, we want slight discomfort but no pain, and so you can find that in each exploration of the shape as if it's the very first time you're coming into it. And again, you can rest the opposite ear down on this side. And in these first few moments of this shape on the second side, just notice what you feel through the inside of the leg or through the low back. Notice where you might feel any pulling or lengthening, any tissues being changed. Notice if there's anywhere you can soften into. You can bring any more relaxation to any of the muscles surrounding the hips or maybe in through the back. Just allow your whole body to be heavy against the earth. Slowly lift the head. Start to straighten that left leg out, bring it down to meet the right. And then you can rest for a moment with the forehead on the hands. And just observe how that left side feels compared to the right side to the left. And then slowly start to lift your head back up. We'll set up for our Sphinx pose. So forearms come down to the ground. Elbows can start out directly underneath the shoulders. If that feels a little too intense, bring them a little further away from you to lessen that intensity. If you feel anything in the low back that doesn't feel great, just widen the legs a little bit wider. Allow the feet to flop out or in, whatever is most natural. And you can stay here, or you can allow the forehead to rest on a block, or the chin just to lower down toward the chest. If it feels okay to dangle the head, you can dangle the head. Oftentimes it can be tempting to open the eyes and look around, to start thinking about what we should be doing after our practice or what other things we could be doing. Know that this is completely normal to have these distractions come about. And it's not about shooing them away or wishing they were any different, but rather just becoming aware of them. Noticing them when they come up, inviting yourself to return back to an awareness of the present moment, of any sensations you might be feeling, of perhaps the breath as it flows in and out, staying as present as in the moment as you can without struggling or straining, and without thinking that you need to be doing or steering the thoughts a certain way. Just anything that comes in, allow it to come, observe it as it is, as a thought, and allow it to just as easily float away. I invite you now to explore venturing into seal pose. If you'd like to give that a try, just bring the hands towards the outer corners of the mat, push into the palms, and then lift the belly up, the ribs up, and the elbows lift away from the mat. If this is too much, lower back down. And remember, you're neither pushing all the way up, out of the shoulders, or sinking them down, but somewhere in the middle. Check in with the glutes, notice if they've engaged. Can you give them a wiggle to release? Slowly bring a bend back into the elbows. Lower the forearms down. Bring one hand on top of the other and rest the forehead down on the head. slowly lift the head. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders. Tuck the toes under, push and lift the hips up, and then come to sit back onto your heels. We'll demonstrate our next shape. It is camel pose, and we'll go through this shape twice and with a rebound in the between, so we'll come into a child's pose in between, and we will hold them each for 1 minute. Now, if you haven't done this in a yin class before, know that 1 minute in camel is quite a long time, longer than you might be used to. So even if you have this in your practice, I recommend that you maybe take a step back from what you would normally explore in a more yang style practice perhaps, and know that there is the possibility that this will feel quite intense. If you need to come out, you're more than welcome to as well. So I'll show you a couple of options. The first one, you will take the blocks and just place them behind you, either side of the feet, and then have the knees so that they're hip distance apart. You can have the blocks or the books on the second level. I don't recommend this third level just yet. And from here, you'll just draw the shoulders back, push into the shins, inhale to lift the hips up. And you can stay with the chin tucked into the chest. If it feels better to allow the head to fall back, then you may. This is quite active for the legs, so if you do feel that leg activation, the quadriceps and the hip flexors, know that that is normal. You might also feel it in the hamstrings and the glutes as well. This is a more active variation for the legs, but less intense for the back bends. The other two options are going to be probably similar to what you may have seen before. We'll come onto the knees so that they're hip distance apart. For the first variation, we'll take the hands to the sacrum. So the sacrum is just above the bum at the low back, and you can do either fingertips facing down or up. It really doesn't matter. I prefer fingertips down. I feel more opening in the shoulders. So whatever feels best, you'll place the palms on the sacrum, draw the shoulder blades back, so retract the shoulders, draw the elbows towards one another, draw the low ribs toward the pelvis to find a little glute activation, and then lift that chest up and allow it to reach up toward the ceiling. And again, the head can rest back, or you can keep the chin in toward the chest. If this feels okay or like not much at all and you want to venture down, then the last option is going to be to place the hands on the heels. You can have the toes tucked under to give yourself a little more height. And just make sure when you come into it, you're not twisting or turning to go to the side. And then again, you can have the head fall back if that feels okay. If you do come into this variation, when you come back out, just bring the hands to the low back at the same time first, and then engage the core to lift yourself back up. So you can choose an option that feels good for you, and remember, it is a little bit more time than what you might be used to if you haven't practiced this in yin before, so take a step back from how deep you might normally go. If you need any other props, you can always sit onto a bolster as well. Instead of having this active lift, you can place a bolster on the back of the calves and sit there for a bit as well. Okay, so find your variation of the shape. Inhale to bring the chin in toward the chest. Slowly engage the abdominals to lift the shoulders back up, stack them over the hips, and then separate the knees wide and come into a child's pose, a wide-legged child's pose. You can allow the arms to stretch out overhead. Chin can come to the ground or forehead down to the ground or one ear. And feel the release through the spine. Push into the palms. Slowly walk yourself back up. Bring the knees back in together. And we'll go into our second round. So if you made it all the way through that first round and you feel like you might be able to go a little deeper, you can choose one of the deeper options. If it felt like too much or like you barely made it, then you might want to either back off or stay where you were. So our second and last round of camel. Find the position that suits you. Bring the hands to the low back, on the ankles. Draw the chin in toward the chest, and then engage the abdominals to lift yourself back up. For this child's pose, you can bring the knees together to allow for that flexion of the spine, so you can round over the legs. Forehead can come down, arms can rest alongside the body. Slowly curl yourself back up. And I'll demonstrate the last few shapes we'll go through. They're going to be on the back. You might have a bolster or a cushion nearby. We won't need the blocks, so you can just place them off to the side. So from lying onto your back, the first shape we'll come into is a reclined pigeon shape. So we'll start with the knees bent, the feet flat onto the ground. And then you'll take the right leg and place the foot just on top of the left thigh, just below the knee. And we are looking to get into the inner groin area here. You might feel it as you are here. Sometimes if you have a wall close by, it can be nice to place this left foot onto the wall. Otherwise, if you don't feel enough right here, you can draw that left leg in toward the chest, and then maybe thread the arms through that little window that you've created, and you can place the hands on the back of the left thigh. If you don't feel it still here, you might take that right elbow and just gently open up the thigh a little more. Or you could even try and straighten that bottom leg, so straighten it up towards the ceiling. This can get into the urinary bladder on the back side of the leg, as well as in through the kidney meridian through the inside of that bent leg. After we do this on the right side, we'll lower the bottom leg down to the ground. If it was extended, you'll bend it and bring it back down. And then we'll keep the legs as they are and twist them over toward the right side. So that top foot will stay on the knee, maybe shimmy it over a little bit more. And this is just getting into a nice twist here for the side of the waist. And keep that opposite shoulder down onto the ground. You can bring the arms out to the side and look in the opposite direction of the knees. We'll then come back up and switch over to the other side. After we do this shape on both sides, we'll come into our happy baby. Instead of holding on to the toes, that's quite active. For this, I'll recommend holding on to the back of the thighs to allow it to be a little more passive, as we will be here for 3 minutes. So drive the knees in towards the chest, bring the feet toward the ceiling. They don't have to go all the way up. And then just hold on to the back of the thighs. If you can interlace the fingers, you can interlace them together and just hug those knees in. If the spine rounds, that's perfectly okay. That can help to actually open up that urinary bladder meridian that runs along the back side a little bit more. The focus here somewhere either on the back side of the legs, or even this compression in through the inner groin is going to stimulate the kidney meridian. And allow the shoulders to remain resting on the ground. The feet, you don't need to flex them all the way in or point them. You can just allow them to be natural. And then after that, we will find our Shavasana. So I'll invite you to come lay down onto your back if you haven't already. We'll set up for our first shape, that reclined pigeon. So with both feet flat onto the ground, bring a bend into that right knee, draw it in towards you, and then place that right foot on top of the left thigh. Either stay here or lift that left leg in toward you. You can hold on to the back of the thigh and maybe even extend that leg up towards the ceiling. Maybe you take the elbow and gently push that right knee away from you. Once you've found a position that feels like you can maintain for a couple minutes, then you can close down the eyes. You have that left leg extended. Slowly bring a bend back into the knee. Release a hold of the back of the left leg if you were holding onto it, and allow it to lower down to the ground. And then with the legs as they are, bring both knees down toward that right side. Arms can outstretch to either side of you, making a T shape. You can keep the gaze neutral or allow the head to turn toward the left shoulder. Push into both palms, slowly draw the knees back up to center. And then place that right foot down onto the ground. And move over to the other side. So right leg stays down onto the ground, left leg lifts, left foot comes to the top of that right thigh, and stay here, or maybe you draw that right leg in towards you. Perhaps you thread the hands around the back of that thigh. Maybe you straighten the leg. And remember that just because you did one shape on the other side doesn't necessarily mean your body is ready for the same shape on this side. Really spend the time to inquire what it is that best serves your body. That right leg is extended. Bring the bend back into the knee. Release a hold of the back of the thigh. Lower that right foot down, and then slowly lower both knees down toward the left side. The arms can come out in your T shape. Make sure that right shoulder stays down onto the ground. Feel a nice twist through that right side of the waist. Into both palms, slowly draw the knees back up to center. Lower that left foot down and draw the knees in towards the chest. Give yourself a hug to begin with, and just draw them in tightly toward the abdomen. And then release the squeeze of the knees. Take the hands to the back of the thighs. Straighten the legs a little bit so that the feet come in toward the direction of the ceiling. If they don't come all the way, or if they flop back down, that's okay. If you want to interlace the hands together, you can do so, or just hold on to the back of the thighs. Feel the gentle compression in the abdomen. And again, come to this idea of allowing the whole body to be heavy. Allow the hands, the forearms to be heavy on the backs of the legs, the shoulders and the head to be heavy onto the earth. the middle back, the upper back, and the lower back to be completely heavy. With each breath in, feel the belly rise and gently push into the thighs. And each breath out, feel the belly soften and the thighs gently come closer toward the ground. There's no need to effort in any way. Just feel the comfort of your own body wrapped into itself, the arms wrapped around the legs or the hands wrapped around the thighs. And just breathe into any areas of tightness, any areas that are holding any tension or resisting letting go. Fill up these areas with fresh, new oxygen from the in-breath, and release any last bit of tension, any bit of discomfort with the out-breath. The hands are interlaced. You can slowly release the back of the legs. And bring the feet down to the ground. Slowly straighten the legs out, and we'll set up for our final Shavasana, our final resting pose. Allow the feet to be mat distance apart or wider. Make any last minute wiggles or adjustments that you need. Allow the arms to rest wide alongside of your body. Nod the head from side to side. Release any tension in the neck. And if the eyes aren't already closed, I invite you to close them here. Slowly bring the awareness back into your body. And wiggle the fingers and wiggle the toes. And start to make rotations in the wrists and the ankles, but do so mindfully. You rotate in one direction, switch and rotate in the opposite direction as well. And extend the legs out. Point the toes away from you. Inhale, reach the arms up overhead. Interlace the fingers. Flip the palms and then stretch in opposite directions. All the way from the fingers to the toes. Reach, reach, reach. Grow long and tall. And then release. One more time. Point the toes, reach them away from you, reach the arms up, lengthen through the spine, all the way from the crown to the coccyx. And then release. Bring a bend into both knees. Come to roll onto your right side. And just stay here in this side fetal position for a few sweet moments. When you're ready, with as little effort as possible, make your way up to a comfortable seat. Keep the eyes closed. Bring the hands to heart center in Anjali Mudra. And I invite you to take this moment to think of something you can be grateful for today. Anything in your life that you can find gratitude for. Bring the thumbs to the forehead and bow forward in honor of your practice. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for this class. If you have any questions about any of the poses or anything that I spoke to in this class, please feel free to reach out. And other than that, I wish you a blessed day. Namaste.